foolish mortals.
Hello there. Are you insane? Get out of here!
Remain seated with your seatbelt fastened.
Right, off you go. Welcome to Average Joe Orlando. Hello, theme park goers. Welcome to another episode of Average Joe Orlando. I am your host, Joe, and I am excited to welcome you to another episode, our first ever Joe's Deep Dive. And today we're going to be discussing extinct attractions of the Magic Kingdom. So when I say extinct, I mean no longer there. So when you think about the Magic Kingdom opening in 1971, a lot has changed from opening day. A lot of new things. However, they also had to unfortunately get rid of things to make room for some of the new things. And it's interesting when you look back at the attractions of what used to be there and you see old photos. I'm always fascinated by the older stuff. I think for me, Horizons at Epcot might be the one that I'm most interested in, just because I never got to ride that and I always see videos of it and pictures and you always hear such great things. So I figured let's start at the original park to talk about extinct attractions in this deep dive and go into what used to be there, because it's really interesting when you actually learn more about what used to be there, because sometimes the Imagineers, they'll put things in there to kind of pay homage to them, or sometimes for budget reasons, they'll just kind of take the same building and rework it, and it makes sense why it's like that too. So when I was doing research, a few things were, oh, this building has never changed since 1971. They just kind of retrofitted it to work, which is really interesting as well. So to start off, I figured the easiest way is let's go land by land, starting with Main Street, USA. So as soon as you walk into the park, there was the Main Street Cinema, which closed in 1998. There's an art store there now on the right. And I remember going here as a kid, and there was always like films playing in there as well. There was the Sorcerers of the Magic Kingdom that you might remember on the firehouse on the left. That ran till from 2012 to 2021, and I feel like some remnants of it are still around the park. You could still find some of the portal areas. I'm thinking they're starting to dig up the little things on the bottom. I don't know why they got rid of the Sorcerers of the Magic Kingdom. It seemed to be pretty low maintenance and easy. I did it once and I found it boring, so maybe that's why. But it seemed to also be popular, I thought, with the cards. So that's gone as well. And also there were swan boats in the lakes in the front. So the lakes were a little bit larger and all connected. I remember when they expanded out the front part of the hub of the Magic Kingdom, where all the seating is and all the lawns with the fake grass and the fountains. It's beautiful now, but it never was like that. I remember they had big trees and a lot of fountains and lakes that all connected around, and that's where the swan boats were until 1983. And then just about 10 years ago, they started filling in some of that lake area for more standing room and seating for capacity, which now if you look at it, you're like, we still need more seating and capacity and area for the fireworks. How did it used to work? I have no idea. But that park, I think, will never be big enough. And then also the Walt Disney Story. That ran from 1973 to 1992. That's basically what you think of One Man's Dream. So Walt Disney Story over at the front of Town Square, where you can meet Mickey, and now it's more so One Man's Dream, which is more the backstory over there. Let's get more into attractions. I think that's the excitement, and that's the part that I'm really excited for. Now, when you get to the castle, they always say go to the left because everybody else goes to the right. So let's be good theme park goers, and we'll do what we're supposed to do and go to the left-hand side, starting in Adventureland, of course. So Adventureland, the first one that comes to mind will be the Enchanted Tiki Room. So, of course, that started as Tropical Serenade, and then it moved over to what we don't like to talk about in the theme park world, the Enchanted Tiki Room under new management. So Tropical wow, that's a tough one. Tropical Serenade opened with the park and then closed in 1997 for what they thought would be a good update by adding in characters that we know. So Iago from the Aladdin, and then Zazu from the Lion King got added in there to kind of be like, okay, look, we have Disney characters in here now. People really didn't like it, and it did close in, that was the Enchanted Tiki Room under new management, closed in 2011 and went back to Tropical Serenade, or as we know it, Walt Disney's Enchanted Tiki Room is still there. And then also we have over there Tinkerbell's Magical Nook. Now, I remember this when the Berry characters were very popular, as soon as you walk in on the right, where the Jungle Cruise skipper canteen is, there was the Tinkerbell meet and greet where you could also meet her and her friends over there as well. And that they gutted out and then became the restaurant, which I think is still actually, yeah, that would be my favorite restaurant in the park, the Jungle Cruise restaurant. It's just fun. If you've never been there, I highly recommend it. It's always just a cool atmosphere in there, and they like to do a lot of the Jungle Cruise jokes as well. We'll keep heading around the corner, and I will do a caveat right now. I could miss things. I did some research. I tried to get everything. You might be like, Joe, you missed this, but hopefully not. I could tell you I'm not talking about rides that they added in later because things weren't knocked down. For instance, the Aladdin magic carpets. That obviously was not built with the park in 1971. However, no attraction was taken down to put that in. They just took another Dumbo ride and smacked it in the middle of the walkway. But let's head around to Frontierland. So Country Bears. Doing this, I actually found that there was a bunch of different ones they did for Country Bears. It did open with the park in 1971. However, they did have a Christmas special that ran seasonally from 1984 to 2005. And they also had a Vacation Hoedown, which ran from 1986 to 1992 seasonally, which sounds really fun, and I wish I got to see those. It is just reopened again from a major refurbishment. So it's still a Country Bear Jamboree. However, it has like a little bit of a new theme with some Disney songs in there too. So it's interesting, though, it went through many iterations, but I'm glad they are still here. Over on the Rivers of America, you have the Davy Crockett Explorer canoes, which for opening day till 1994. I know in Tokyo Disney they still have the canoes, as well in Disneyland in California they still have the canoes, and I've never done them. They look exhausting. You actually have to paddle. So I'm wondering if that's why they're not here in Florida anymore, that in this Florida heat, nobody wanted to paddle a canoe. That doesn't sound very fun. Splash Mountain opened in 1992 and closed in 2023 for Tiana's Bayou Adventure, which we know just recently opened. And that name, I don't know if anybody else it bothers. It just feels like it's kind of a lazy name because you have Remy's Ratatouille Adventure, and now you have Tiana's Bayou Adventure. Come on, we could do better. Make better names for these attractions. Splash Mountain was a fun name. You could think like, I don't know what the better name would be, but something adventure just isn't. Now we have Adventure World coming to Disneyland Paris. We could do a little bit better. Come on. And then Frontierland Shooting Arcade. So that was an open day attraction that unfortunately closed this year to make way for a Disney Vacation Club lounge. Exciting. I'll try not to be negative on that too. Okay, Liberty Square. Let's talk about Frontierland attractions over there. So there was the Diamond Horseshoe Saloon Review, which ran from opening day till 1986. And then it became the Diamond Horseshoe Jamboree from 1986 to 1995. So this was a fun show that you could watch while you ate over there. Unfortunately, now it is just a restaurant, and it's part of the Liberty Tree Tavern. They kind of do overflow dining. Sometimes they have their own menu. It's all still there. It looks really cool. It kind of looks like the Hoop-Dee-Doo Review inside. However, there's no show. Just a cool-looking place to eat. Also in Liberty Square, it's considered part of Liberty Square was the Mike Fink keel boats. That's a tough one too. And that ran from opening day until 2021. And those were smaller boats that ran along the river as well. Let's head around the corner over to Fantasyland. So I will start with the big attraction in the middle, the Prince Charming Regal Carousel. It was originally named Cinderella's Golden Carousel. And fun fact, Cinderella's horse is actually on there. You could ask the cast member which one it is, and one of the horses are considered Cinderella's horse on the carousel. It's still there, just has a different name. But for former attractions, we'll go from there to Mickey's PhilharMagic. So that opened, that theater, it was always a theater show, as the Mickey Mouse Revue from opening until 1980. And then there was another show in there, I'm reading Magic Journeys, which I don't know much about till 1993. And I do remember this one, The Legend of the Lion King, 1994 until 2002. And that was more of a puppet show that had actors doing the puppets in there in the theater. And then that unfortunately did close to make way for Mickey's PhilharMagic. when you see it, you kind of go, okay, it's definitely a cost-cutting thing, which makes sense because they don't need to hire actors. It's a 3D movie, Mickey's PhilharMagic. And also, they don't need a Legend of the Lion King when you have the fantastic Festival Lion King over at Animal Kingdom at that time. Over by the current Snow White Mine Train roller coaster, I'm trying to think what you call it. The Snow White ride. They have it, the Mine Train, Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, there it is, was 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. So that was an opening day attraction that opened in 1971 and closed in 1994. One of those rides that I remember as a kid I always wanted to do and never got to do because it was always closed for issues. There is a submarine voyage ride over in Disneyland in California, and it is the old 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea ride. However, it is now themed to Finding Nemo. And after doing that ride, I go, okay, I really didn't miss anything. The submarine ride is pretty claustrophobic and also very hard for loading and unloading to climb down and up into a submarine. So I do see why we don't have it here anymore. There is, however, a 20,000 Leagues ride in Tokyo Disney, and just like everything there, it's better than anything else. And it's more of a track ride, but it's a car that suspends from the ceiling, and everybody has a different window, and you face out, and it feels like you're underwater, but you're really not. It's one of those rides that you can't explain, and when you ride it, you go, how did that happen? And then you have to get off and ride it again. That's a good one. But the one in Magic Kingdom did close in 1994. It did get replaced by basically a playground called Pooh's Playful Spot until 2010, and then started making way over there for all new Fantasyland. So in that area is the new Fantasyland. That's right across from where the current Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh is as well, if you see that in older photos. Probably the saddest one for me on this list is going to be Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. So that is an open day attraction that closed to make way for the Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. Luckily, that ride does still live on in Disneyland in California as well. There's also a Skyway station, if you know where the tangled toilets, if you will, are. The Rapunzel bathrooms. That looks like a beautiful area. What is this? Do I meet Rapunzel here? No, you just go to the bathroom. But that was the Skyway station that took you over to Tomorrowland. And that closed in 1999. And then Snow White's Scary Adventure. So that was opening day and closed in 2012. And that is where Princess Fairy Tale Hall is. And that's kind of an upsetting one, too, because it closed to make way for just a character meet and greet indoor. It didn't get replaced by another attraction. So you kind of lost an attraction there. However, recently I did ride Snow White's Scary Adventure in Tokyo Disney, and it lives up to its name. It is a dark ride. I think you got to see Snow White once. It was mostly the evil queen just trying to kill you the whole time. Pretty scary ride for kids. They did take that ride in Disneyland in California and changed it into her Enchanted Wish. So updated it and made it less scary as well, which I wish we just did here. But instead, we have an indoor meet and greet with all the princesses. Next land on our circle will be Tomorrowland. And this seems to be like the one that took the most change and seems to be the one that is also, if you go to all the other Disney parks, always the one in that need of the most help as well. I think it's one of those things that Tomorrowland originally, when it was built in the 70s, made sense. It was the peak of technology and World's Fair, and now it's one of those things we can't keep up with technology. So kind of how we saw Future World disappear over in Epcot, Tomorrowland really doesn't seem to fit here anymore either. So it's kind of more going to the fantasy of what we think the future would have been. If you go out to Disneyland Paris, it's Discoveryland, so it's more of a Jules Verne theme, so it's more timeless. And here it's a little bit of a hodgepodge over here in Florida because it seems to be more just saturated with different IPs, so intellectual properties instead, or even closed buildings. So when you first walk into Tomorrowland, underneath the new walkway, they did update it recently, if you haven't noticed too. It used to be more of gears and steampunk, and now it's going more into the traditional, which I really like. But on the right, where Monsters, Inc. is, there was a lot of different things in that building. So it started off in 1971 as America the Beautiful. So these were all Circle Vision 360 shows. You had a America Journeys from 1984 to 1994, and then the Timekeeper. So this was a 360 show as well. So if you ever think the show over in China in Epcot or in Canada at Epcot, where you can turn around and all the theaters are playing something in a circle, this is what this theater was built for. And that closed in 2006. And that was, I remember doing it once as a kid, so I don't remember it well, but there was a robot and it was voiced by Robin Williams and would take you on a tour and everything. It was neat. It was definitely dated, and that's why it turned into Monsters, Inc. But that's one of the theaters where you could walk into Monsters, Inc. now and sit down and go, okay, I see why it's all round and everything. This was a standing show where I stood and I looked around and got to see everything. So really the core of that building hasn't changed. Right next to it, at the Buzz Lightyear ride, also hasn't really changed if you think about it as well. It opened with If You Had Wings, a slow-moving dark ride from 1972, so a year after the park opened until 1989, and then turned into Delta Dream Flight from 1989 to 1998. So all slow-moving dark rides, but then turned into the Buzz Lightyear ride using the same track area. But then if we go across the way to the abandoned now Stitch's Great Escape, which turned into the Stitch Meet and Greet, which is basically just stroller parking right there. There was a few different things in that building which utilized the exact same ride building that never really changed. So it was Mission to Mars from 1975 to 1993. And I looked it up because I did not know anything about this. Apparently that was an attraction that was in Tomorrowland at Disneyland. Also, and then it was opened as Rocket to the Moon in Disneyland in 1955, and then Flight to the Moon in Disney World in 1971, and then they kind of retooled it for 75 for the Mission to Mars, and then closed down as well, and it would simulate taking guests on a space trip to the moon. So sitting in that round theater, if you remember from Stitch, where everybody sits and faces in that round center, it always got changed to the exact same thing. So they were able to constantly retool it from the original Flight to the Moon to Mission to Mars. So Flight to the Moon 1971, Mission to Mars till 1993. And then in 2 years later, they opened up Alien Encounter. If anyone remembers that one, either you were terrified of it or you were bored of it. And I remember writing this, I guess it was 95, and I was little, and I got out of it, and I went, that was boring, and this girl next to me was sobbing, crying. She was so scared. So it was one of those hit or miss things. It's not fun being sitting in a chair, having pressure put down on you on your neck, and something breathing on you, and it was just uncomfortable, and a little too scary for the Magic Kingdom. So that did close in 2003, where they reopened it as Stitch's Great Escape until 2018. Same concept as Alien Encounter. You'd sit there, they would accidentally bring over Stitch, he would run around the theater, however, it was all in the dark, so it was just sensory things. Not the greatest thing. So to me, personally, gut that whole building. We don't need another one where we just sit there and face the center. It's been doing that since 1971. Let's gut it and put something else new in there. So it's empty right now. I'm hoping we get something. That park could use the capacity. There's also a Skyway station to Fantasyland, so similar to where the Tangle Toilets is, where that's where you could pick it up, and it'll drop you off over in Fantasyland. There's nothing to where it is now, but that was a Fantasyland to Fantasyland Skyway station till 1999. Also, the Starjets, which are now I don't know what they're called. The rockets, the ones that are on top of the People Mover, they were originally called Starjets until 1994 as well. So you're probably like, great job, Joe. You got through all the different lands in less than 20 minutes. False. There's one more land, actually, that's around. And that was a land called Mickey's Toontown Fair. Many of you may remember that one. So it originally opened in 1988 as Mickey's Birthday Land, and that was for his 60th birthday in 1988. And then it was changed over to Mickey's Starland, and then they changed it again to Mickey's Toontown Fair, which is the last iteration of it. And that's where you can go to Mickey's house. You had the Minis, you had the Barnstormer, so Goofy's farm where you could ride his roller coaster, Donald's boat, and that did close, unfortunately, in 2011 for the new Fantasyland. However, with that, they also did keep the roller coaster as well, and that is all part of Storybook Circus. So Storybook Circus, where the tents are and everything, that was all part of that land, which opened as a new expansion in 1988. So I don't really consider Storybook Circus a land of the park, just more of a section of Fantasyland. So Storybook Circus at Fantasyland. Curious if other people consider it another one. It's interesting if you go over to Disneyland in California because they don't have Storybook Circus. However, they do have Galaxy's Edge, and they do also have New Orleans Square and Critter Country, so they have a few different lands too. So I guess you could consider it like a tiny land, even though there's two rides. The Dumbo ride is moved there as well. The Dumbo ride used to be featured where the stroller parking is behind the carousel. So always, if you want to see how that looks, Full House, watch that episode when they go to Disney, even though there's no princess for the day, and Michelle definitely cut Stephanie, but that's another story for another time. I want to end all of our deep dives with some fun facts, so in case you didn't learn anything new, maybe you will now. So fact number one, Magic Kingdom is actually built on the second floor. Probably many of you already know there is a tunnel system underneath, but they use the dirt to raise it up, dug out from the Seven Seas Lagoon in the front of the park. So that is a man-made lagoon, and all that dirt was dug up, put over by Magic Kingdom to help raise it up because they couldn't put the first floor underground because of the high water table here in Florida. Also, the lands were all originally themed around the different hotels, or should I say the hotels were themed around the lands. So you have the Contemporary Hotel, which you could see from Tomorrowland, meaning the Contemporary was supposed to be more of that futuristic resort. You also have the Polynesian Resort that was built to be more like Adventureland. And then the other opening day hotel or resort was Fort Wilderness Campground, which is after Frontierland. On the castle, you got all those bricks in the front. However, there are 0 bricks on that castle. The whole castle is actually made out of fiberglass. So next time you go up, if you can touch the castle, knock on it. And the last fun fact I have for you is that Liberty Bell over in Liberty Square is made from the same cast as the original Liberty Bell in Philadelphia. And there are 13 lanterns up in the tree next to it, and that resembles or stands for the 13 original colonies. Now that we covered all the different lands of the park and the different attractions, I hope you might have learned something new. I know during my research I did, and it makes me look at the park a little differently as well and kind of remember, oh, that used to be there. That's why this looks this way. Oh, that's why this attraction's there. So hopefully the park continues to grow and change. My thing is I would love to see it keep growing without having to remove anything. The best example would be Tron. In recent years, we got the Tron attraction without having to demolish or retheme an old attraction. So it's always fun when a new attraction can come in, not only to help with the ever-growing park capacity issues that they're having, but also just to add more excitement to the park without having to lose one of your favorite possible attractions. Obviously, losing an attraction that we don't care that much about is okay, but for the most part, we like all the attractions, so it's really sad when you kind of lose anything. Once again, Horizons for Mission Space over at Epcot. Also, in future attractions, looking forward to discussing other parks, talking about what used to be there and what is there today, as well as fireworks shows, parades, different entertainment at all the parks. Those are always changing, probably more frequently than attractions as well. So looking forward to having some guests on as well down the road to discuss some of the previous things in there. But as always, thank you for listening to Average Joe Orlando and for our first ever deep dive where we discuss Magic Kingdom extinct attractions. And with that, I will see you at the parks. Thanks for taking a ride with Average Joe Orlando.
You made it!
I knew you would. Is everyone okay? Hope you still want to open an account.
Say cheese. See you later.
Thanks, everybody. You were brilliant.
At this time, gather up your personal belongings and take your small grubs by their grubby little hands as you exit. Thank you.